What is going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another week. Week 6 is over. Week 7 is upon us. We have so much to discuss. Again, touchdown bets, start sits, boom busts, hidden gems. Last week was a fantastic anytime touchdown bet week for us. Jake specifically, my man, you went 9-5 on your anytime touchdown bets. I think I went 7-7, so both in the money, but you definitely absolutely crushed it, man. How are you feeling, and what's your secret? Fill me in.
Yeah, feeling good right now. I mean, 2 weeks in a row though, we've been robbed of one. We had Judkins 2 weeks ago, and then Rome kept us from getting a 10-4 week this week. So would love to see those hit, but can't complain when you're going 9-5. So
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really good. I feel like you're really doing a good job of putting your football knowledge on the line here with these bets, and they are hitting really, really well. So let's keep it going, man. Let's keep it going. Another, 14, 15 games this week. So we have much more
yeah.
touchdown predictions to go through, and then we'll run through our start sits and all the other stuff. So without further ado, Jake here, anytime touchdown bets this week. First game on the board tonight, the Bengals traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. My first bet happens to be one of my biggest long shot of the week. I'm going to go ahead and take the third string running back technically on the depth chart for the Steelers. I'm taking Caleb Johnson plus 800
Mm.
to score a touchdown this week. This is nothing more than a short week. You're taking on one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So if there's ever a time to get a rookie more involved, short week, worst defense in the NFL. If somehow the Steelers go up a lot, again, this rookie needs to get work. I think they saw a future for him. So even though Jalen Warren's healthy and he's going to be an absolute smash, you still have Kenny Gainwell. I'm just going to sprinkle on Caleb Johnson at plus 800. And I mean, if that hits, then basically the rest of the board is on house money. So it's kind of a nice bet to start off the week with if it does hit. So give me Caleb Johnson at plus 800.
I like it. Yeah, so I've double dipped on Chase 2 weeks in a row, found the end zone. This week I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm actually going with his partner in crime over there with T. Higgins to find the end zone. So plus 205. I think the Steelers obviously know this team very well. They play them very frequently. Different quarterback, but they've seen Joe Flacco plenty. I think the focus is going to be very heavy on Jamar Chase this week. Chase Brown's not been very relevant. I think Higgins may see a few more targets. And we even saw a little bit of an uptick in targets last week with Flacco taking over.
Yeah, as bad as the Bengals defense is, DJ Turner, their cornerback, has been shadowing the number one on opposing teams, and he's done quite well. So you have to probably believe that it's going to be Chase that he shadows more so. So maybe they try to get creative and move Chase around, and then maybe he stays on Higgins. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who he shadows. But I do like what you're saying. Chase has been there 2 weeks in a row. You have to think the Steelers are going to put an added emphasis on the number one guy, and Higgins is, very capable himself. So I do like that. Rams taking on the Jaguars here in Jacksonville on Sunday. I believe this is the morning game. I'm going to keep this one simple. Kyren Williams, running back for the Rams, he finds the end zone almost every week, and I'm getting a pretty good price here. Minus 125 for Kyren Williams to get in the end zone, I feel like is a absolute steal. So keeping it simple there. No real analysis to that other than he's the number one running back there, and they're without Puka as well. So it's just going to be Devontae Adams and Kyren Williams show. So give me Kyren Williams to find the end zone.
Yeah, and hit the nail on the head there. I went with the other guy there. I went Devontae Adams. So obviously no Puka this week. Adams has been a pretty strong red zone threat. We know Stafford loves to throw the football. Minus 110 I felt was a pretty good price, so decided to go with Adams this week.
I'm willing to bet pretty good money that one of us hits that, if not maybe both of us.
Yeah.
Patriots and Drake May traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans, who have looked absolutely horrendous. They just fired their head coach, Brian Callahan. I'm going to take the Patriots quarterback, who is continuing to surge, looking like one of the premier quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the premier quarterbacks of the draft class that he was in with 6 other quarterbacks. So give me Drake May to run into the end zone at plus 310.
Yeah. I went with the Patriot as well here. I'm going Hunter Henry. So I really like Henry to find the end zone. I think Drake May has been throwing absolute dimes all over the field. Henry is very consistent down near the red zone, somebody that you can find, has a big body. So I think there's a good opportunity, especially against this Titan defense. We see him in the end zone.
I like it. I like it. Moving to Minnesota, the Eagles are traveling to Minnesota to take on my Vikings here. I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. His price, again, is very, very intriguing for a guy that loves to run the football in, obviously with the tush push. Minus 110 for Hurts to get in the end zone. I like the Vikings
Oh,
defense, but their run defense is probably their weakest part. So if Saquon Barkley kind of gets going and they can run the ball and establish it, if they get near the goal line, tush push is coming. So give me Hurts at minus 110.
I like it. I picked JJ this week. Kind of similar philosophy to what I've done with Chase the last couple of weeks. When I can get one of the best receivers in the game at plus money, plus 115 for Justin Jefferson, I really like the value there. I think with JJ McCarthy, I think is expected to play this week, right? So he's back in the
It,
lineup, or we don't know
he's
yet.
he's back at practice, but the weird thing is, it looks like he's 100% with his ankle, but they're just giving him more time to just get more reps because he hasn't played enough. Wentz is actually on the injury report. He suffered a shoulder injury on his non-throwing shoulder. I would say if Wentz was 100% this week and they were still getting McCarthy, kind of back into the offense, Wentz would start. But right now, as it stands today at Thursday, I think it's a coin toss about who starts. If I had to guess, though, Jake, I think it's going to be Wentz, which helps your bet, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, but even with McCarthy there, I still feel pretty confident in JJ. I think, especially for somebody who, although he's not a rookie, I still consider him sort of a rookie. He didn't really get the time last year. Usually, these rookie quarterbacks love to find their top target. Justin Jefferson's going to be open. We know that's going to be the case. It's just a matter of whether they can get the football to him.
I feel like every week that you and I choose Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase with our anytime touchdown predictions, we just have to do a gritty live on the podcast. So I'm gonna need you to start learning your gritty because you've been taking Chase quite a bit, and now you're taking JJ. Oh
They're making
man,
it too easy for me. They're giving me plus money on two of the best receivers in the NFL. So
I know it's such a no-brainer every week. Makes me want to take them every week as well. Let's take it over to Kansas City, Jake. The Chiefs are hosting the Raiders, and another receiver is officially back in the mix. Rashee Rice has served a 6-game suspension. He's back, and I am not wasting any time taking this man plus 140 on the anytime touchdown bet line there. So give me Rashee Rice to find the end zone his first week back.
yep, I'm right there with you with this one. So I think all the reports I've read is they plan to force feed immediately. They're not really planning on easing him back into it. It's not like he's coming off of an injury; it's a suspension. So likely still been getting some practice reps. Him and Mahomes had great chemistry last year. I think he'll be a very featured target. Maybe see 10, 15 targets this week from Mahomes.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to see if he just steps right in and hasn't missed a beat, especially for people who have sat on him for 6 weeks and now they get to inject him in the lineup. So it's got to be a good feeling. I don't have any Rasheed Rice stock, so I don't get to participate. So him scoring a touchdown would be the only way I get to participate by making this bet. So uh,
Yeah.
the Browns are taking on the Miami Dolphins in Cleveland, and weather reports, Jake, are saying that there could be 50 to 60-mile-per-hour winds. So what does that tell you? It tells me that they're going to be running the heck out of the football. The Browns' rookie running back, Quinshon Judkins, has looked absolutely superior this year, and I think he's going to have no issues running against this Miami defense that is terrible at stopping the run. Minus 125 for Judkins to find the end zone. So give me all that.
I like it. So I went with Jalen Waddle this week. So I know it will be difficult to throw the ball, but I think he's a player you can get involved in a lot of different scenarios. I think A-Chain's probably going to struggle. We haven't seen many teams do very well against the Browns defense. So I think you could see some trickery here, maybe a screen pass, maybe something like an end around to Waddle. There still will probably be some checkdowns in his direction as well, but he's the feature receiver there. I think A-Chain's really going to struggle, so that has me leaning more towards Waddle, trying to get him involved in different ways this week.
Yeah, this could be a really ugly game. Like, I mean, we could be seeing a really, really low score.
I
It could be a
considered a no
situation.
touchdown bet here. I
I
strongly
listen.
considered a no touchdown bet.
You read my mind, man. I was literally like, this could be one of the games where we just don't even see a touchdown. So I wouldn't put it past this game to not provide a touchdown for us. But it does seem like we're picking two of the most likely candidates to score if, in fact, we do see touchdowns. Your Panthers are traveling to New York to take on the Jets. Who's it going to be? Rico, Chuba? That's been the talk of the town so far this week. I'm going to ride the hot hand here, man. I cannot take my gas off of Rico at this point. Plus 125 to score to find the end zone. He's just playing way too well right now for them to completely limit what he's doing. Chuba, if he comes back, I think they're going to ease him in when they don't necessarily have a reason to force feed him the ball, even though he is the back that they've paid a tremendous amount of money to. So another week, I'm riding with Rico Dowdle, plus 125.
I do really love Rico this week as well. Went back and forth with him as an option. I decided to go with T Mac. I think the chemistry is really building between him and Bryce. Another kind of more long shot that I think could be worth taking here. Coker's supposed to be back in the lineup this week.
Mm-hmm.
He is a big body. I think could be another great option if you're looking for a better price than what T Mac's going to be at. I think Coker has a pretty good chance of finding the end zone this week too.
Yeah, speaking of Coker, I'm glad you mentioned that. Coker is somebody that if you are stashing somebody at the end of your bench, like Jerry Judy or somebody who basically you're there hoping he finally figures it out and he quite literally hasn't, Jalen Coker's a guy that I think could come in and step up and really be actually fantasy relevant. We've seen so many times where T-Mac is relevant and they're trying to utilize Xavier Legette. And, for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to work. He's got the athleticism, but he doesn't really have the wide receiver prowess, if you will. And Coker absolutely has that. So I could see a world where Coker is a actual viable flex option in fantasy on a week in and week out basis. So if he is a free agent in your fantasy football leagues, he would definitely be somebody I stash at the end of the bench.
Yep.
Bears at home taking on the New Orleans Saints here. I don't have a line for this. The touchdown lines weren't out, but I'm going to take DeAndre Swift to find the end zone. He finally looked good last week. He's looked good for a couple of weeks, and I think it is more so a product of the way they're designing the running plays now versus what they were doing the first 4 or 5 weeks. It seemed like early in the season they were just trying to get Swift to run between the tackles, and that is quite literally the worst thing the thing that he's the worst at. He's terrible at finding the holes. He's terrible with patience. So the thing that now they're doing is they're running him a lot more outside, and that's where he's able to utilize his speed, and he doesn't have to make as many decisions with which hole to find. So I think this actually fits into the way he runs the football a lot better, and they've been able to build a play action off of that. So I think Ben Johnson's going to continue to do that. Saints aren't a great defense, so give me DeAndre Swift to find the end zone this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with Swift. My fantasy team needs that as well. I have him in Dynasty, so I would love to have another 20-plus point week like he had last week. But yeah, complete agreement there. I think Swift's the guy this week.
I like it. Denver is at home taking on the Giants here this week. Jackson Dart coming in and taking on probably his toughest test to date. I'm going to go with the running back for the Broncos, J.K. Dobbins. I went with him last week. He did not find the end zone. He's even money this week. I think there is going to be a heavy dose of running the football. I will say one guy I don't dislike either is Cortland Sutton. So the Broncos are going to be honoring Demaryius Thomas at halftime in this game. Obviously, rest in peace. A guy that was an absolute legend for the Broncos passed away a lot earlier than he should have. So I could see a world where, the number one receiver on the Denver Broncos really wants to find the end zone. I'm taking Dobbins, but I also don't hate Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, I'm going with Cam Scatterbo this week, so I'm going to ride the hot hand a little bit. Kid is an absolute bulldozer, for better or for worse. I think they're going to feature him very heavily, especially with, they don't have Malik Neighbors. I think Slayton's questionable.
I think he's out.
We'll see if he plays. Yeah. So receiver room is already thin. Wouldn't really like the receivers to begin with against the Broncos. So I think if they're going to find the end zone, it's going to be Scatterbo or Jackson Dart on the scramble, but I think they're going to be monitoring that a lot more. He's shown he's willing to run.
Yeah, I was looking at who PS2 could possibly shadow, and it's probably one of the weeks where he's like, I don't even really have a true guy that I can shadow. Like little Jordan Humphrey's playing the X receiver right now for the Giants. So is PS2 really going to take little Jordan Humphrey on a matchup basis? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what this offense for the Giants can do. But you're right. Scatterbo right now is just a possessed man. Like he runs the ball like he just gives 0 Fs. And so it's kind of what you want if you're looking for somebody to bulldoze into the end zone. So I like it.
Yeah.
Chargers Colts in a pretty interesting matchup in Los Angeles this week. I'm going to take Keenan Allen plus 180 to find the end zone. Quentin Johnson's still on the injury report. I believe he's going to practice today, but Keenan Allen, after starting 3 straight weeks with a touchdown, has kind of regressed a little bit. Ladd McConkey's found his footing. Obviously, we've seen the QJ long touchdowns, but I think this is a situation where you do have the Colts secondary playing pretty well. You're going to need a lot of slot guys to step up, and the Chargers defense hasn't been all that, and the Colts have been able to put up points. If the Chargers want to continue to compete in this game and keep up, I think throwing is going to have to happen. Obviously, with the nice game from Vidal, I just don't know that they're going to be able to run as effectively as they did last week. So give me Keenan Allen to get back into the end zone after scoring every week the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I like it. So I went Jonathan Taylor here. This is the best price I've seen on him this season, minus 135. So a little bit of juice there, but Jonathan Taylor's been so consistent this season. He's been unbelievable. So when I'm getting him at that price, I feel like it's maybe the lowest I see him at this season. So I'm going to take advantage of it this week.
Yeah, that's a steal. I'll probably tail you on that as well. Usually I expect to see him like north of minus 175. So minus 135 is an absolute win there for him. Packers traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals here. I'm going to take the same guy I feel like I've been taking week in and week out with Green Bay. Give me Tucker Kraft to score a touchdown again. It's always, to me, just a product of the fact that there's 2 guys on that offense that if I'm going to bet money, I would bet money to score. It's Josh Jacobs and it's Tucker Kraft. Josh Jacobs is touchdown props always really, really juiced. There's no other receiver that is consistent enough for me to lay down money on them, but Tucker Kraft quite literally is that guy. Sometimes he can be the focal point of the offense. Sometimes he can be the safety blanket. Sometimes he can catch 2 passes, but one of them will be in the end zone. So right now, I trust Tucker Kraft the most. Not necessarily any guys on the Cardinals that I trust versus this Packers defense. And there wasn't a line out on Tucker Kraft when I put this in, so I don't know exactly what his odds are, but I have to imagine it's going to be north of like plus 150. So give me Tucker Kraft.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Same thing. Feel like Kraft's the number one option. I mean, we could see one of these receivers sneak into the end zone as well for the Packers. I know Love loves to spread it around, but I think Kraft is your most surefire bet if you're looking at the Packers offense outside of Jacobs if you want to pay for the juice.
Exactly, exactly. One of the biggest over-unders of the week, we have the Commanders traveling to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. They are expecting this game to have a ton of points. I am looking at the Titans, or I'm looking at the tight end for the Commanders. Give me Zach Ertz at plus 210 to find the end zone. It seems like he goes kind of every other week with having a good week and a bad week, but this is a game where I expect the Commanders to be able to throw. I expect the Cowboys to be able to throw. I expect the Commanders to be able to run, and I expect the Cowboys to be able to run. So I just don't know what defense is even going to make a stop here. I'm expecting back and forth. There's a lot of candidates that you could take, but for the price, I'm going to go ahead and take Zach Ertz at plus 210.
I like it. I'm going with Pickens still this week. I know CD is, I believe, looking to be back in the lineup this week. Has that been confirmed? He is playing this week.
It's not confirmed, but it's trending that way for sure.
Yeah. I don't think that necessarily negatively affects Pickens. I think from a target perspective, it may. But I think CD actually opens up the offense more for the Cowboys. So I think Pickens is kind of the big play threat. He scored a lot of touchdowns already this year. I like him to find the end zone again, especially with CD out there. I like this bet even more, actually, with CD playing.
One of the only bets that I'm going to actively root against for you because you have Pickens and I'm playing against you, and then Shishot has Pickens in my main league and I'm playing against him. So I got big anti-Pickens energy at least for this week, but that's where we're at.
Hard guy to root against.
It is. He's so electric to watch, and every time the ball gets thrown up to him, there's few guys in the NFL that I'm actually actively terrified of what's going to happen when the ball gets thrown up to him, specifically because I don't have any pick and stock, right? So I'm never actually getting to root for him. So it is scary. He almost reminds me sometimes of like Jahmyr Gibbs last year, where every time he touches the football, I felt like crazy electric magic was going to happen. That's what it feels like with George Pickens right now. So it is not fun to be on the receiving end of that when you don't have any pick and stock. 49ers are hosting the Atlanta Falcons this week on Sunday Night Football. One thing I want to headline real quick is this Atlanta Falcons defense is legit. Anytime you're deciding to start or sit somebody, they're playing the Atlanta Falcons, that has to go into consideration. Again, they're just way too dominant on the front line right now. But I'm actually going to take somebody on the Falcons because the 49ers defense is absolutely decimated. I never thought I'd say this, give me Kyle Pitts to find the end zone this week. I don't have a price for it. The lines weren't out, but this has to be north of plus 200 in my opinion. So it's going to be a pretty decent price. The 49ers are going to have to score the football. Brock Purdy may be back, so that is definitely a big plus for them. And George Kittle, I think, will be back. So they are getting some returning starters hopefully this week. So maybe get closer to 100%. And the Falcons, I don't believe, should have problems moving the football against the 49ers. It's just about once they get into the red zone, maybe they will throw the football to Pitts since Drake London seems to take every single target from Penix recently. But I think this week they're going to try to double team London or put some more emphasis on London, and that should open up Pitts to find the end zone.
Yeah, this is a spot I really hope that I'm wrong because you have him in fantasy, so I would hate to see him score against me this week. But I did go with Drake London. I think Penix has shown that's his guy and big time player. Really should have had multiple touchdowns last week. So I think London is going to be still a lethal threat, especially with this 49ers defense beat up like they are. I just don't know. Even if they do double team, I'm just not sure they have the talent out there to stop him from getting in the end zone.
Don't you have London in one of your leagues as well?
No, I traded him in Dynasty, remember?
Oh shit, that's right. Oh damn it, that's right. Okay. My mistake.
Yeah.
So you're really hoping he doesn't score.
Yeah, exactly. I'm anti Drake London for the rest of this year, although he's phenomenal. I just a little bit of bias went into that trade.
100%. We have, is it 2 Monday Night Football games again this week? We have Bucks at Lions this week. Detroit hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are absolutely decimated on the wide receiver front. I think they're going to get Mike Evans back, but Igbuka's out. Godwin may not play. So this is a week where, again, Bucky Irving is also out. Give me Rachaad White, man. Rachaad White, completely effective when Bucky's out. He can take on the role of being an every down back. He's a third down pass catcher, and he's even money. And the Lions, while they score a lot of points, they're also prone to giving up a lot of points. So this game should, in theory, be a shootout. I'm going to take Rachaad White at even money.
I like it. I'm going with Monty this week. So sort of a backup running back. I mean, he is going to be the goal line carries. I think that, like you said, it's going to be a shootout. I see the Lions finding the red zone quite a bit. And so I think we have a good shot of Monty finding his way into the end zone this week.
I like it. It's what he's known for. So get in.
Yeah.
Second Monday Night Football game should be a doozy, man. Texans traveling to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks in what should be a fantastic matchup. Houston started off the season slow, but the last couple of weeks they've been putting up hella points. Seahawks defense is pretty good, but I'm going to take Nico Collins at plus 140 to find the end zone this week. If there's a weakness in Seattle's defense, it is against wide receivers. So Nico's finally getting his footing. CJ Stroud seems like he's trying to pick things up again the last couple of weeks, and then they just came off a bye. So there is a world where the Texans have finally found their footing and are kind of on the resurgence again. So Nico Collins at plus 140, I'm going to go ahead and smash that.
Yep. I'm right there with you with this one. I really like Nico this week. I also looked at JSN. I think that's a very good probability that he finds the end zone as well. I think his odds were just slightly worse. I think they both have a really good shot at finding the end zone, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards Nico this week.
I like it. I like it. We're in lockstep on a couple of them. That's it for anytime touchdown bets, Jake. Let's run through our start sits. First one, we have Jalen Waddle taking on the Cleveland Browns or Lad McConkey versus Indianapolis Colts. I'll start this one. It's going to be quick. I'm going to go Lad simply because, again, I mentioned the weather in Cleveland. Yes, Jalen Waddle could get volume because he's their number one receiver now with that Tyreek Hill, but I just don't know. Tua doesn't have the strongest arm. He's more about touch and accuracy, but if he's lofting footballs at 50, 60 mile an hour winds, I don't really know where those are going to go. So it really worries me. Lad against Indy should be a shootout. There should be a lot of throwing. If QJ's not in, then I especially love Lad even more. So I'm leaning Lad there.
Yep, I agree with you on this one. I think Lad would be my play. Even though I do have Waddle finding the end zone this week, I still think he's going to be pretty limited in what he's going to be able to do. I don't think it's going to be a very high volume of touches, especially if the weather turns out to be how they're forecasting. I'd probably lean Lad. He's been really the feature target for them over the last week or two. So I think that's going to continue to trend up for him.
Yeah. Next start sit's actually yours, so I'll answer it first. Mike Evans taking on the Detroit Lions or Rico Dowdle taking on the Jets, both teams away. This is a tough one, to be honest, because if Mike Evans is coming back, he's coming back fully healthy, and they're without so many other receivers. And Detroit, obviously we talked about it. They score, it should be a shootout, but I still lean Rico Dowdle. I'm just in a world right now where, based on what we've seen from Rico Dowdle the last 2 weeks, it feels impossible to bench this man. It feels, even if Chuba's coming back, we all know Chuba got paid, all this stuff, but even if Chuba's coming back, I think at worst this week, we're seeing maybe a 65-35 between Rico leading the snaps and Chuba being right back there. And again, it's not the worst matchup against the Jets, so I do think Rico can have a successful week. Although I love Mike Evans. I think if you had the option to start both, I would be starting both. But in this situation, slight lean Rico, but that doesn't mean it's because I dislike Mike Evans. It's a great matchup for him as well.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit biased, but I lean a little bit more towards Rico as well. I just think he's going to still get a very high volume. I'm actually expecting it more to be 75-25 splits. I just feel like there's really no reason to rush Chuba back when you've seen such success from Rico. The last thing we want to see is he comes back in, gets re-injured immediately, and then he's out for 3, 4, 5 weeks. When you already have somebody that's had a lot of success, I really want Chuba to be fully available when we play the Bills at home next week. So would love if Rico could continue to carry the load this week and get us through this Jets game.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, I know a lot of coaches don't believe in like looking forward and ahead of the schedule, but it would make sense in theory if the Panthers feel like they can take care of business with the Jets without having to involve Chuba as much, then he actually finally gets his footing against a, much tougher opponent, the Bills. So that would make sense. I hope that actually plays out the way that we want it to. Justin Herbert taking on the Indianapolis Colts or Jared Goff versus Tampa Bay. Is Jared Goff at home? Yeah, Jared Goff's at home. So I'm actually going to take Jared Goff here, man. Jared Goff at home has always been a thing. He's indoors. Tampa Bay, again, should be able to score the ball. They're going to put up points. This seems like another high over-under. Unless we see like 2 rushing touchdowns from Gibbs and 1 from Monty, I feel like Goff has a pretty safe 18-point floor. Herbert, in theory, I loved this year, but now with his tackles being hurt, it just seems like the offense doesn't work the same way. They had to run the football quite a bit last week and they were effective, but it was a really, really easy rushing matchup for them. So it'll be interesting to see what Justin Herbert does. I believe after week 1, he hasn't thrown more than 1 passing touchdown in a single game. So things have slowly started to trickle down for them. So I lean Jared Goff here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, I'm a little bit higher on the Indy defense than I think a lot of people are. I've actually started them a couple times. They've been my defense to pick a few times this year, and they've performed pretty well. Now, I think Chargers are still going to move the ball pretty effectively, but I would still lean towards Jared Goff here. I just like the matchup against the defense a little bit better, and he's at home.
Yep,
Well, they're both at
absolutely.
home, but
Yeah, but we know Goff at home is an actual thing. So
yeah, yeah.
T. Higgins taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight, or Jamison Williams taking on Tampa Bay in the last game of the week. Man, this is, to me, this is a really, really tough one because Jamison Williams is just such a boom bust. Like, yes, he could go for 30, 40, but he could also go for 1 to 3 points. T. Higgins, I feel like if this game plays out the way expected to, Pittsburgh should go out with a big lead, and at that point, they should the Bengals should be just playing from behind and playing catch up. And again, we love as fantasy owners when we are on the receiving end of that because the other team just plays a bunch of prevent, and then you get your receivers catching a bunch of garbage passes. It's kind of how Jamar Chase has been relevant the last 2 weeks for me. So that's kind of what I'm expecting maybe is going to happen this week. But the only saving grace is it's a divisional matchup, and we know short week divisional matchup. Weird things happen, man. Weird things happen. So that's the only reason why I think if you're going for the home run, I don't see a world where Higgins is dropping 30, but I do see a world where Jameson Williams could drop 30. So I think this is so lineup dependent on how the construction of your roster is. If you're looking for somebody who can give you
Yeah.
that boom to beat a team that, is projected to outscore you by a lot, Jameson Williams. If you're needing somebody that's just going to be able to get you maybe 5 to 10 points, maybe a little bit more, then it's T. Higgins because, again, JMO could just get you 1 to 2 points. So this is a tough decision to make, but if I had to lean, I'm leaning JMO.
Yeah, I think I might would lean T. Higgins here. My thing, I may be on the other end of this a little bit, but I don't think in my opinion, I don't think I see the Lions and Bucks being nearly as close as people think it's going to be. Not because I don't think the Bucks are great. I think Baker's incredible. He's having an MVP caliber season. I just think they're very depleted. The Lions have a really, really good team. I could see this game maybe not being as close as everyone's forecasting it to be, and the Lions kind of running away with this. And in that case, I think it features Gibbs and Monty heavy. Whereas I think Pittsburgh and the Bengals are going to play a little bit of a closer game, divisional game. I think passing is going to be a little bit more relevant in their matchup. So I think I would lean Higgins, but I agree with you. Jameson could definitely go for 30 at any time because of the speed and just big play potential.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention about Jameson is we're looking at I guess this past week he actually had a good week, but he had set 6 for 85 and a touchdown this past week, but that was after 3 straight weeks of like 2 for 43, 2 for 40, and 1 for 9. So when you're dealing with a boom bust player, a lot of times you're playing kind of like how you would buy a stock at its low value, right? Like if he's had 3 straight bust weeks, he's got boom potential. So that's when you're kind of riding him. He had a good week last week, but again, at home, I just think there's a world where he could go off. But you're right. You're right. If Pittsburgh is going up quite a bit and the Bengals have to play from behind, then Higgins should rack up some garbage points for sure. Quinshon Judkins is taking on the Miami Dolphins, or Xavier Worthy versus the Vegas Raiders. I'll let you kick this off.
I think I would lean Judkins here, just because I think he's going to see pretty high volume. I know the Miami defense has really struggled. I saw the way the Panthers were able to gash them. And also I just worry a little bit. I need to see what Worthy's going to look like with Rice back in the offense. I still think Worthy's obviously a huge play potential, but just worry about are the targets still going to be there? So I would probably lean more towards Judkins this week.
Yeah, to me, this is a no-brainer. Judkins should be an absolute smash this week. Miami's rush defense is terrible. I already mentioned the weather. So if I'm expecting the weather to hold out like that, they are only going to have to run the football. Judkins is the kind of running back to me that it doesn't matter if there's 8 in the box because he's fast enough to run around you. He's strong enough to run through you. He's got incredible vision. And again, Miami has shown no ability to stop the run. So you mentioned Rashee Rice coming back. It'd be nice if they can coexist, but right now we need to see a world where that actually happens. Worthy hasn't even been really fantasy relevant without Rashee Rice. So it's kind of a weird situation to try to want to start him when you have a guy that is going to get the lion's share of carries against a pretty bad defense in what should be bad weather that should dictate you running the football more. So to me, this is a no-brainer. Quinshon Judkins here.
Yeah.
Jake, we'll spend a little bit of time on this because we talked about it a little bit, but shed some light on kind of this Rico Chuba situation versus the Jets and how you as a Panther fan see this unfolding. And then maybe I can give you my 2 cents if there's anything more to add.
Yeah, I mean, everything I've read, I follow a lot of people that are insiders for the Panthers on Twitter, so I'm looking at these constantly. I really think it's going to be a very heavy Rico workload this week. I think north of 70% would be my estimation just based off of what I'm reading. I don't think that we're in any rush to bring Chuba back too quickly. You may even see some ETN sprinkled in some of those Chuba situations just because it's not really worth bringing him back. I think if Rico's really struggling, that could obviously change. But this isn't a week I really anticipate he's going to struggle a ton. The Jets aren't a horrible defense by any means, but I think we'll be able to run all over them. So I believe our offensive line has looked pretty good, even despite the injuries. I really think Rico's going to be the guy. Now, going forward, if you're talking about for the rest of the season, I do think Chuba probably continues to eat into that workload and we get closer to like that Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams 50-50 splits. Could be great for fantasy owners where you have two guys that are playable, or it could be a nightmare situation where neither of them become playable because they're each scoring 7 points a week.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge what the Panthers' rushing offense really is going to look like because these last 2 weeks they played some of the worst run defenses you could play. So again, in theory, who knows if Chuba could have had the same level of output that Rico had? But again, you're right. They have shown us that they are willing to run the football. So is there a world where both of them play and both of them are keeping each other fresh and they're both actually relevant, where one guy's catching passes to make himself fantasy viable and the other guy's getting more of the bulk share of carries and being the guy that finds the end zone? Yes, in an ideal world, we'd like to see both of them coexist, like you said, similar to D'Angelo and Jonathan back in the heydays. But if that's not the case, then I'm with you. Again, until we see Chuba Hubbard back on the field and playing enough snaps and producing enough to be fantasy viable, there's no world where if I'm a Chuba owner this week, I'm starting him unless you're just so desperate and you're so thin at running back that you have no other choice. But yeah, I'm starting Rico confidently this week. I'm not starting Chuba confidently this week. And moving forward, I feel the same way as you. I think it is going to be a situation where it's truly a 50-50 just because Rico's the hot hand. Chuba's the guy that they paid and they have under contract for several years. So it's kind of a weird situation they're in. I would say if Chuba had been like a 1-year deal and he just came back on a 1-year deal, then yeah, right at this point, it would be Rico or bust. But that's not the case. So I kind of see the long-term situation similar to you.
One thing worth noting too with that is Panthers are known for paying a running back and then just cutting him. So we did it with Miles Sanders. I do love Chuba. I really like him as a part of the team. I think he's a really good player. But you also have to take into consideration we drafted Jonathan Brooks, who's been yet to see the field. We drafted ETN this past year. The running back room is very full. One of those two may not be a Panther next year. So, I think it's definitely something to monitor, or maybe
And
both. Who knows?
yeah, and one last thing. I guess I don't know the exact answer to this, but was Chuba not a Panther before this regime change happened? So Chuba was the last regime's running back, and I think they brought in Rico
Yeah.
after the regime change. So you always want to factor that in because who knows how the current construction of the front office views the running back room versus what we think it is based on, Chuba got paid, but Chuba got paid from the last regime, right? So in theory, we don't know if
Yeah.
this regime's like, we're going to run the hot hand. Yes, we like Chuba because he's under contract, but that wasn't contract money that we paid out or we decided to pay him. So that's the other thing
Yeah,
that I'm
three out
kind
of
of
the four were chosen by Canales. The one
exactly
that's the odd man out is Chuba. Not to say he doesn't like Chuba, but the
right.
other three running back, he didn't like him enough to not select two running backs in the second round
Exactly.
right
Exactly.
after he got paid. So
Yeah. So those when we don't have enough concrete like actual fantasy stuff to go base decisions off of, these things I think are very very important. So I'm glad we shed some light on that a little bit. Tight end coming back. George Kittle should be back potentially this week. He's taking on the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Or would you start Darren Waller, who seems to catch a touchdown every week against the Cleveland Browns?
I think I lean Kittle here. I am a little bit nervous with him coming back from injury. We don't know what his snap percentage is going to look like, how often he's going to be out there. But I think just really matchup based. I mean, Cleveland with the weather situation is going to be very tough. And I think the 49ers, depending on what happens in the receiver room and how many players are able to play, if all these receivers are continuing to miss games, it's really him and CMC. And I think CMC needs a little bit of a break bad. So Kittle needs to be able to be featured if you want to keep McCaffrey healthy for anything beyond week 8, 9, 10. If you want him for a playoff run, you got to take a little bit of the workload off of him.
Yeah, I have to imagine if Kittle's coming back, he's coming back at 100% and playing a full allotment of snaps. The thing with Waller is the last 3 weeks that he's played 28% of snaps, it's slowly going up. 58% and 69%, but still targets 4-5-3, catches 3-5-2. It's just the fact that he has 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, and 1 touchdown. So a touchdown every week obviously is going to be fantastic when you're starting a tight end in fantasy football. But I don't think touchdowns are what you can specifically chase when it comes to tight ends. And Kittle is one of those premier guys, the Trey McBrides, Brock Bowers type guys that when he's healthy and on the field, he's not a guy that you're typically benching. So I also lean Kittle in this matchup. Two more tight ends to discuss. Travis Kelce is taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, or would you start Dallas Goedert at Minnesota? Right now, I think as hot as Dallas Goedert has been, the Vikings defense is pretty damn good. Specifically for pass catchers. So I just think even though Rashee Rice is coming back, even though there's extra mouths to feed, Mahomes is playing out of his mind. The Raiders defense is pretty bad. Could it be a world where Rashee Rice is getting 15 targets like we talked about his first week back? Sure. But it's also a world where now that Rashee Rice is back in 100%, defenses are, focusing on him. And now this old man Kelce, they're like, he's already old. We don't really need to put as much emphasis on him. Well, just when you count out somebody like Travis Kelce, it's when he can find ways to beat you. So in this specific matchup, I still lean Kelce, although that sounds crazy because Goddard, I believe, is tight end too. He's been fantastic. I just don't love the matchup in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with you, surprisingly. I mean, I do love Dallas Goedert. Got me a touchdown last week on my anytime touchdown bet. I think he's a really good option. Minnesota's defense has been very good. And actually, Kelce, I think the Rice-worthy combo being together finally may benefit Kelce. It's going to be a lot more mouths to feed, yes, but they're going to be a lot harder to cover those two guys. Worthy's obviously a burner. Rice gets open very well. I think there's going to be a lot less pressure on Kelce. And so definitely think this is one of those situations where you could see him sneak one into the end zone. I wouldn't expect a massive fantasy game for either, honestly. I think both probably hover in that 10 to 12 range if I had to guess. But I would lean a little bit more towards Kelce because I think there's a good chance he could find the end zone this week.
Yep. We're starting one of these three here, Jake. Jameson Williams against Tampa Bay, Devontae Smith against Minnesota, or Wan'Dale Robinson against Denver. I think out of these three, the person that I automatically rule out is Devontae Smith against Minnesota. Again, Minnesota's number one against opposing receivers so far in fantasy points this year. I know, again, he's a wide receiver too, so there's a world where they put emphasis on A.J. Brown, and he kind of gets his. But until we see wide receivers demolish or dominate the Minnesota Vikings, I just don't see a world where you're starting them, let alone the wide receiver two, let alone although he's wide receiver too, he may be like the fourth option on his own team. So it's just a really, really tough position to be in to start Devontae Smith. I've already expressed what I think about Jameson Williams, big boom bust candidate. So it's more so about roster construction. The Wan'Dale situation is tricky because he is quite literally their wide receiver one right now. And I don't think he's going to match up against PS2 because he's, strictly mostly in the slot. So he could get a lot of really, really short catches for not a ton of yards because, again, this Denver defense is really, really insane. So if you're looking for a safe floor for a guy who could catch passes and just be relevant, I think it's Wan'Dale Robinson. Again, if you're shooting for the moon here, I think it's JMO.
Yep, I agree. I think I would probably just go ahead and take the risk. If it were me and I had the situation of the three, I'd probably just go ahead and go JMO. Just because of the big play potential, the ability to get a lot of yards off of short catches. Wan'Dale, I'm just not overly confident in just because of that Denver defense being so good. I just don't know if the Giants are going to be able to move the ball at all. And then very similar with Devonta Smith, I just don't really see an opportunity to start their fourth option. So I'd probably just lean more towards the upside if these were my three choices and just hope that JMO can have a big week for me.
Yeah, same. Last one on the board here, quarterback question. Caleb Williams taking on the New Orleans Saints or CJ Stroud at Seattle. I think to me, this is a no-brainer. You're taking Caleb Williams right now. Again, Stroud has shown that he's slowly on the uptick, but it's at Seattle. Seattle's already a good defense, and Stroud doesn't offer anything with his legs, which is contrary to what Caleb Williams offers. So I think at this point, for a fantasy perspective, you're taking Caleb Williams.
Yep, I agree with you. I think against New Orleans, I'm pretty comfortable starting a lot of players. And Caleb Williams has shown some real flashes of being a star this year. So I think this is a great week for him to get right and have a big game. So I think I would definitely go Caleb Williams here.
Perfect. Those are our start sits. Let's jump into our booms and our busts. My boom this week, Jake, is Quinshon Judkins. I already talked about him a little bit, but let's talk about him a little bit more. Taking on the Miami defense at home. I mentioned the possible win. Again, I mentioned the fact that this is going to be something that this is going to be a game where both teams are probably predicated on running the football. Judkins has had a tough game against Pittsburgh last week. But before that, he had 3 straight top 18 finishes and 2 top 11 finishes. Miami is 28th against opposing running backs in fantasy points so far this year. So I'm expecting a heavy, heavy dose of Judkins, and I think he's going to find the end zone. So, if he's getting 15 to 20 carries and he finds the end zone, I mean, that's about as good a day as you can hope from your fantasy running back.
As much as I don't like this because you have him starting against me this week, mine is Jaylen Warren. I really think he's going to have a big week this week. I think he came into the season with much higher expectations, has really not lived up to those thus far. I think if there is an opportunity to really get right, this is going to be the week to do it. So I think he's probably going to have a very strong week this week. I'm rooting against it, but my gut says that he's probably going to have a pretty good week this week.
I got him starting in both of my main leagues, so nothing would make me happier than a big Jalen Warren night. My bust this week is actually twofold here, Jake. It is the Seattle running backs. Doesn't matter if it's Ken Walker. It doesn't matter if it's Zach Charbonnet. They're taking on the Houston defense. They are at home, though, but both running backs splitting work has been actually awful for fantasy. Charbonnet actually leads in touches, which is wild to me because Ken Walker is clearly the better running back. Charbonnet is so ineffective and inefficient. Unless he's falling into the end zone for a touchdown, he's not startable. Right now, Ken Walker is not even getting the workload to be startable, which is, again, just crazy to me how they're evaluating these running backs. Again, on paper, I think most people, if you ask them, they are going to tell you Ken Walker is the far superior running back. I just don't really understand why the split exists. But right now, it's the worst thing for fantasy. Not to mention, they're taking on Houston, who is third best against opposing running backs this week. So it's just a really tough spot for both. If one guy was getting 100% of the touches, maybe, again, because you want starting running backs that are getting lion's share of volume, but neither of them is getting that, and neither of them has been efficient. So right now, I think this is a massive bust spot for the Seattle running backs.
Yeah. I'm going with the running back here as well as my bust. Kind of surprising because he's had a really strong start to the season. I think exceeded expectations for most people, but I have Travis Etienne. I think
Okay.
on a short week playing against the Rams have been a pretty strong defense. I mean, they were able to contain a lot of the running backs that they've played against this year. Tootin's also starting to get a few more carries. He's getting mixed in there. He's a much more electric running back, in my opinion. Etienne's a little bit more consistent. I think he may just have some trouble this week. I also think the Rams are going to be leading for a good portion of this game. So I think that there could be a lot of passing going on. So, I think especially 8:30 a.m. game, and they're in London, correct, this
Yep.
week? Yeah. So I just think that he may struggle this week and not quite live up to that 10, 12 points he's been consistently getting. I don't see him getting that 6 yards a carry against the Rams defense.
Yeah, not likely at all. I like that. I like that. He's definitely a prime bust candidate this week. My kicker, my hidden gem kicker this week is Steady Eddie Pinheiro versus Atlanta on Sunday Night Football. Atlanta has a legit defense. We already talked about it. You have to really look at your matchups when your players are taking on Atlanta. We already talked about San Francisco. CMC is their only guy. Kittle is coming back. Ricky Pearsall may be back along with Brock Purdy. So even if it's Mac Jones and it's Kendrick Bourne, we've seen that they're still able to move the football. They will throw that Texas route to CMC straight down the field until they get into field goal range, and then they'll probably stall because Atlanta's red zone defense is really good. But that's exactly why I love the kicker here. He's number 2 in the NFL right now in terms of kickers for points. He's still available in 44% of sleeper leagues, and 4 out of 5 weeks this year he's had double-digit points. So I don't really know why he's so widely available still, but if he is, you need to go out and grab him because I think not only this week, but this could be a guy that's just steady the rest of the season to be able to be a viable starter.
I think this is the first time we have the same kicker, but we're in agreement this week. I really think this is a great opportunity to plug him in. I think the 49ers are still going to be able to move the football. They have enough weapons. Christian McCaffrey, Kittle coming back. I think they're going to move the football just fine. I just don't know how well they're going to be able to score in the red zone or score once they get across midfield, which leaves a lot of opportunity for Eddie to go in, kick 3 or 4 field goals for us and really have a double-digit week. So I really like that.
Boom. In lockstep with the kicker. Who would have thought? That guy's got to be booming this week then. 20+ points for Pinheiro.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. My hidden gem defense, I'm going to make this short because it's so in line with everything I've been talking about. I'm taking the Browns defense again, man. They are taking on Miami. We've already talked about it at home. Whether, like you talked about, if we don't think Achane's going to have a good game because Miami's going to be forced to run the football and, Tua's throwing these lofty, lame ducks and 50, 60-mile-an-hour winds, interceptions are likely. He's likely to get sacked if his first read's not involved. And they're available in 64% of leagues. So I think they're a sneaky play this week based on matchup. And they're the 25th ranked defense. So most people aren't even thinking about starting the Browns this week. So that's why I think they're a absolute hidden gem.
Yeah, I'm taking a little bit of a risk here too. I think overall a not very good defense. Only rostered in 7% of leagues. So unless you're in some of the sweatiest leagues out there, then I imagine this team is available. And I'm going with the Chicago Bears. And I really like the matchup against the Saints. They were, I think, better last week against the Commanders. I mean, still wasn't a great defensive performance, but if you're looking for a defense to pick up this week that's just sitting out there on the waiver wires, I imagine this defense is going to be available unless you're in my league and you see them starting already. But I think the Bears could have a pretty good week this week against New Orleans and limit a pretty bad offense from scoring too many points.
Yeah, I like it. Again, these are hidden gems for a reason. So for them to be widely available, most people should have the ability to pick them up if they're really desperate for a defense. But that is all we had, man. That is the episode for the week. If you're watching, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word. Socials are Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, @TheOnlyPlaybook. I am Sweet Card. That is my good friend Jake. Let's have another fantastic week. Let's smash all of our anytime touchdown bets. And Jake, let's hope that me and you tie in fantasy so that none of us have to go through the
I think you
sadness
owe
of
me a
loss.
win this week. You got me in Dynasty, so I think it's my turn.
Semantics. Fine. I'll let you have this week. We'll see we'll see how the actual players play on the football field. But if you win, no hard feelings here. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we will see you next week. See ya.